In today's session, we're going to do a little bit of recap over the last couple weeks, and then we're going to dive into how to continually move forward, especially as we're getting into another shift of the season, entering cold and flu season, but also just another shift in work life, social life, free time, outdoor activities, fresh vegetables, all that jazz. So one quick thing, and Christine, I think you nailed it right on the head. What you said is progress requires setbacks, and the only sure way to avoid failure is not to try. So setbacks are going to occur. Speed bumps are going to occur. You're going to experience some sort of struggle and turmoil and having a need to course correct on the fly while you're working towards goals, whether it's something really small or something that's really big and lofty. Everything is going to require some sort of like a change in motion, and that's inevitable, right? The only sure thing is change. So being able to adapt, and the only way that you're going to actually end up failing in the long run is not trying that change or trying to adapt. If you do the same thing over and over and over, sure, it may bring some progress, but more often than not, it's requiring some sort of a change or some sort of at least change in mindset for a reason. So checking in on some previous weeks, mostly a little bit of last week, just a reminder to not carry your digital leash, i.e. your cell phone, everywhere you go. It's really important to give yourself that little bit of disconnection. We work on the phone, we work on our computers, we're at, the call, even communicating with friends, family, loved ones. Right now we have to do a lot of it digitally. So checking in that free time or more of your free time is spent a little bit more away from screens is going to be really healthy for your eyes, but also really healthy for your brain and just overall like emotional and energy profile. Number 2, don't talk shit about yourself. Also very important. Just a reminder that even if you're doing something that's not to your ideal standard, not to necessarily only be frustrated with yourself or just be like, damn, I need to do better. Basically just be your best cheerleader. You kind of have to be. Going into morning and evening rituals, I asked this question in the previous week. Did you do what you wrote down? Just kind of go through a mental note. Like the things that were part of your morning and evening routines. Did you do what you wrote down? For the things that you did, what was one positive that was gained from it? From the things that you did or were not able to do, what is one positively aimed criticism that you can work on? And then one thing to think of is, can it be more simple? So can what you do be more simplified to either less steps, less things to do, or just making it easier? And then something is also really big and important, especially now, is personal boundaries. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into this today as far as how to always have time for your workouts and what matters. And a cool little quote that always resonates is, there's no clear path to success, but the one sure path to failure is trying to please everybody. You two ladies specifically? Still just you two in here right now? Okay, because I just can't see the Hangout screen. Yeah, you two are absolutely helper person people. So in that sense, I know that you both definitely love to extend yourself to complete projects and help others on top of helping yourselves. And every now and then, right, there's a scale that needs to balance of, are we overextending ourselves to either projects or profession or others where it cuts into self-care time? Sometimes that's important, right? To be selfless in replacement of being selfish. But if you do that too often, being selfless too often in the sense of purposefully putting your health and wellness needs on the back burner, can definitely be disadvantageous, even though it still is, you're still doing good things for others. The problem is you're doing it at the cost of your health and wellness. So in the short term you can do it, but over the course of doing that for weeks, months, or many months, even to years, it really can build up into a lot of other types of junk, which we'll dive a little bit into today. So here are the importance of smaller steps. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We will go through this very briefly then. Yada, yada, yada. I threw this one out here again, just to remind us, there's no clear path to success. Now, we often feel that our health, wellness, and especially going to the gym can get thrown on pause. Now, these little charts were based on a survey done by those who were part of a precision nutrition coaching program. And I was in this webinar a couple days ago, and they threw out all these stats as far as what people find it, basically we'll just go right through them. 62% of people have trouble exercising regularly because of the demands of daily life, whether that's work, home, scheduling, balance, profession, etc. 89% of those who work deal with moderate to high job stress. 88% of caregivers, i.e. stay-at-home parents or those taking care of a loved one, such as a parent, an uncle, an aunt, a child who needs a lot of attention. Even students experience high to moderate stress. 60% of people experience stress within the home. 65% of people with jobs working 8 or more hours a day are experiencing stress. And 87% of people find that it's difficult to deal with stress, at least some of the time. Overarching theme here, everybody has stress. We already know that. Now, what stresses people out from person to person is different. We all get triggered by certain things, but there are some similarities across the board. And some of them are going to be this: A, not enough sleep or restful hours. So you can have 7 hours of sleep, but if you sleep with all the lights on and the sound on and you fell asleep with your phone in your hand, was that really resting? Or you can get 5 hours of sleep, unfortunately, but sometimes it's reality that we all got to deal with. 5 hours of sleep, but the hour before going to bed you read, and it was dark, and the temperature was good in the room, and then you woke up and you did some stretching right away. So that's a little bit more restful, albeit it's less. Right, other stresses on the body being low amounts of water, being infrequent amounts of exercise, too much exercise in a very short amount of period of time, eating really shitty foods, salty foods, sugary foods, drinking alcohol, the list could extend. Practicing road rage, who knows? The point being, there are a tremendous amount of stressors that we have, and those stressors really don't disappear. And the feeling of having a busy schedule doesn't disappear. A big thing is, especially with this whole COVID thing hit, is I'll go back to the gym when. I'll go back to the gym when work slows down, or I'll go back when the kids are back physically in school, or their schedules are a bit more routine, or when we're done working on the house. Right now, I'll go back to the gym as soon as I feel safe and healthy again. And I'll touch on that in a second. And I need to pause until things get less crazy. Now, the list can go endless as far as I'll do this when, I'll get to this when. And maybe it's not back to the gym. Back to the gym was the example I wanted to use here. But it can be, if you're, whatever the thing is that you're looking or have been juggling with, being more efficient and consistent with. There's always that rationale of there's not enough time, or I don't have enough time, or that feeling of you're waiting for a little bit more space to open up so you can insert this thing that you want to do into it. Except things never really slow down permanently. There's always movement. Every now and then a little bit more space presents itself. But the problem is, if you're waiting for things to really slow down, to take a breath and try to start doing this new thing, you're going to end up waiting way too long. And as you can see by this cute little graph below, that's kind of what happens, right? You get really excited with a goal. We'll use a plain example is going to the gym and working out versus sitting at home and not working out. You go 3 times a week for almost a month straight. You make a whole bunch of progress on that first bump. Then you miss a day or two, and then you feel guilty about missing a day or two, so you skip the next week and you didn't want to check in with your coach, and then you ate a couple things that were shitty because you weren't focusing on your workouts, which means you weren't triggered to make better habits. And then you get sick of it after 2 to 3 weeks that you come back to the gym and you're more consistent for now like almost 2 months straight. Great. And then a thing comes up where someone got sick at home and you had to quarantine for a week now. And then while you're in quarantine, you're eating a whole bunch of shitty food. And then after the quarantine ends, you come back to the gym, but you're still eating the shitty food. And then you stop to come to the gym. So before I ramble forever, the point being, like, it's very easy to get caught up in these little bit of habit loops. And sometimes it's almost like an anti-habit loop because we convince ourselves that there's not the space for it, or something else needs to happen in order for this thing to happen next. When in reality, sometimes you just got to pull the trigger. Like, you just got to do the thing. And sometimes by doing the thing, you find out that there was space there all along. You just had to capitalize on it and set that boundary of like, no, this is the time for me to do this. And if I don't claim this space, someone else is going to claim it when it's convenient for them. And then neither of us are going to win because I'm going to be bitter towards that stolen time for me. But if I use the time consistently and I, make it sacred, the 5:30 a.m. workout or a 7:30 a.m. workout, or if it's a walk at that same time, if it's not a physical workout, just having that ritualistic time of this is me and nobody's going to interfere with it. Just like if you're on someone else's time, whether you're running on someone else's schedule, you're not going to interfere with theirs because it's a common source of respect. So having respect for your schedule and your time in combination with respecting the time and schedule of those around you. Because if you're not going to respect your own time, how are you going to expect other people to respect your time? Big thing is on consistency. So from that little graph you saw, like every time the person had to pause, they lost steam, they lost progress. And the reason being is consistency will win versus intensity when you're looking for a lifelong approach to fitness. That point of you can't just slam on the gas and go hard for 3 weeks and then you're good. Like wipe your hands like, sweet, got my goals. You need to have a steady IV drip of fitness and healthy lifestyle choices. And that's kind of what this shows right here. Now, one thing I like is, so the purple graph, the tallest graph amongst, is those who are the most consistent. And the red, the lowest also, is those who are the least consistent. Now, this says nothing about intensity or frequency. It says nothing about intensity or frequency. It's just about consistency. So this is over the course of 12 months. And behind the scenes, the people were asked, it was a minimum of 1 to 2 days per week. 1 was a minimum, 3 was the maximum. 2 is obviously the ideal. So the people who were 90 to 100% consistent, they weren't doing anything more than 3 days per week. And the people who were 10 to 49% consistent were maybe 0 and 1. So the point being, you don't need to go 5 days a week, or you don't need to do something 5 days a week to only have it be effective. You just need to be doing something every day, and that something can be really small and very almost seem pointless to do, but it's that same thing. It's the ritual, it's the habit, it's the routine, and it's like compounding interest in the stock market or a bank account. The little bit on top of a little bit will add up to a lot over the course of time. So instead of thinking that you have to hit play or pause on your nutrition or your workouts, think of them as a volume knob, and or a sliding scale, and you turn the volume up between 1 and 10. So it's not, I'm doing health and fitness and then I'm going to pause because I'm on vacation, or I'm going to play health and fitness and I'm going to pause because family's over. Or because, whatever it is, or I can't make it to the gym for 2 or 3 days because XYZ reasons. It's, you turn up, some days you're going to be doing stuff that's between a 1 and a 3, and I'll break down what the 1, 2, 3, 4 means in a second. And then some days you're going to be living up towards a 10. So within this, each of these numbers are basically going to represent um, a frequency or an intensity of that behavior. So if we were to label this graph or this say number knob um, nutrition, say nutrition, and say in the next part, it could be any sort of thing. You could consider this exercise, or you could put sleep or business or home environment. And what it is what is the most thing that you could do for this? So if we're talking about nutrition, a 10 out of 10 on nutrition is, I made every meal for the week and I didn't eat sugar after. So it's this basically like the perfect gold star standard of what you want it. Like if you were going to take a habit of yours for nutrition and put it on like the trophy case, what would that be? If it's a giant serving of greens at every meal and hit your water goal, or if it's, no snacks after XYZ time, whatever that thing is, what does that look like? On the flip side, what is the least amount that you can do for this? Well, if all else fails, I had 3 pieces of crumb cake and a Frappuccino and 4 hot dogs, but I got all my water in today. Okay. It wasn't, that day isn't a law. You didn't do a 0. You still hit at least one thing that is supporting it, albeit maybe there are other things and much better choices you could have made that day. Sure. But that's every day, right? We got to try and ditch the negativity bias as often as possible, because we're going to fail every day. We're going to fail a couple times every day. But if you only look at your failures, right, you're only going to attract more failures. Not taking it to like the law of attraction level, but if you're thinking about doing bad, you're probably going to do bad. Like it's not rocket science, but exactly, if you're thinking about abundance, like, when you think of it's more like the mental of the volume knob too. If you're okay, I'm operating like you're never a 0. It's never I did it or I didn't. It's like, well, I'm doing some of it, or I'm doing more of it, or I'm doing all of it. So there's always positivity, and that's kind of like what this dial is. We're going to try and get it to represent. And this is kind of a little bit of homework for the week as well, in the sense of we're going to create, however you want to call it. I call it volume knobs, just because you can adjust the volume of how loud or how well you're doing the thing. You can name it whatever the heck you want. But we're going to do at least one individually, and you can set it up for whichever thing is you feel the easiest, or whichever thing you feel that you want to maybe need a little assistance on. And it can be movement. It can be stress relief tactics. It can be sleep habits. It can be workout routine or workout, we'll say, movement of, required. I'm trying to think of the word here. And beyond. And then for each of the things, so for, going to the nutrition thing, number 1 would be consume the minimal amount of water each day. Like that's, if all else fails, drink my water. Okay. Number 2 would be, all right, I start my day off with, greens on my plate. So each part of the dial, and I'm going to send over a couple examples of some filled out dials. Each number on the dial just signifies something slightly more enhancing that will aid to your health and fitness. Numbers 8 and 9 being like the gold star, like the A+ of performance for that category. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me just see if I had. Okay. So yeah. So let me just tackle this week's homework so I can stop the screen recording, and then we can dive in for a minute. So between this Monday and next Monday, and I'm open to help you create it as we go. Please fill out at least one of these volume dials and then share it in the Google Hangouts group. And if you have questions on how you're building it, like how to finish out labeling or where to start and where to stop, please absolutely drop me a message. We can kind of go over that. And then, also I'm going to share the examples in the group. The two other things, one of them is accumulation and getting outside to walk 1 mile each day. Now, this isn't a lot, but it's going to be very purposeful for, yes, your physical health, but more so probably your mental health, especially at this time of year when it's goddamn beautiful outside. So how you're going to get outside for your 1 mile is a variety of ways, but you can be with your dog, without your dog, with your cat, whatever. After a workout, before a workout, if you get to work out a couple minutes early, go for a couple minutes of walking instead of maybe foam rolling. Before bed, after dinner, right in the morning, while listening to the news, doing mini walks throughout the day, on a lunch break, right when you get out of your car after work. Small, tiny, tiny little things, but trying to get religious, right? Make that minimal effective dose habit. And now if you walk as part of your profession, like Michelle, I know you're on your feet all freaking day for work. If anything, using either part of a walk or a jog as total decompression versus like an exercise need. Or maybe for you, instead of the 1 mile walk, is some sort of like an outdoor stretch or like a sit decompress, like something opposite of what the day is really entailing. For most people, it's like stationary or meandering. And then next Monday, so after this whole week goes by, we're all going to share what are, including me, because I gotta always check in with mine too. We're going to share what our screen time was composed of over the past week. Dun dun dun. So we'll all dive into our settings and meet the maker as far as where our phone time is really being dedicated to. Is it just phone calls and messages, or is there a lot of is there some minutes or maybe hours that are being allotted some places where they could be redistributed a bit more positively? And I'll also drop this picture into the group, so if you wanted to physically print it out, if you didn't want to break out your artistic skills and draw 10 equal puzzle or pie pieces, you could do that as well.